Hello everybody, my name is ProfRich, and today I'm answering your questions live in the chat. So if you have questions about English learning, English language, grammar, vocabulary, or just general questions about life and philosophy, then I will answer those questions from my perspective as a professional language teacher. And hey, I might also have some personal ideas or personal perspective to help you with as well. I'll do my best. I'm just a guy on the internet who happens to have 16 years experience teaching languages, and I'll do my best to answer your questions as they come. And we're going to start with a question from Pachu. I can't post the original from Pachu because of the way that my stream is set up. But Pachu said, how are movies and TV part of English literature? What's your opinion? Let me just adjust my screen a little bit because it's all gone a bit funky. Right, yeah, that's how it should be, something like that, right? And if I go to this, look at that, everything's working. By the way, smash that like button. So, movies and TV series part of English literature. Well, yes. They are part of English literature in a way. How are they part of English literature? Well, they're narrative forms that use language to tell stories. So they have many things in common with written texts. It's just really another kind of text and another presentation of that text. If you explore the very term text does not actually need to mean just the written word when you dive into it linguistically. Actually, it can also be spoken texts. Speak to Scott Thornbury about that if you want to know more. He loves talking about spoken texts. But anyway, it's the connection and overlap of storytelling and themes and so on with literature. So it's something like that. All right, let's see what else we've got going on. By the way, hello everybody. Sleepwalker says, Rich, what do you think about tongue twisters? Is it good to practice them? And what is the most difficult tongue twister you can recall? That's a very interesting question, Sleepwalker. That is something actually that I've thought about a little bit, and I quite enjoy tongue twisters myself. But you know, I've never gone deep with tongue twisters in my teaching. I do believe that they help. However, I like to make things as authentic as possible. So I don't really want things to be too synthetic if they don't have to be. Synthetic means that we produce them synthetically, man-made, not natural. That's synthetic. So, although sometimes synthetic practice can be useful, I think when we can avoid synthetic practice, it's better. So, in the case of improving your pronunciation, articulation, fluency, then I think there are more authentic ways than tongue twisters. That's not to say that tongue twisters aren't useful at all, because tongue twisters are fun. So there is something to be said for that. However, I do think on the whole that it's more beneficial to just practice phrases. Maybe you do shadowing or you practice some colloquial common phrases, something like that. As for specific tongue twisters, I mean, the famous one everyone knows is about Peter Piper picked a pickled pepper. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? However, I've got a good one for you here. Are you ready for this? Can you do this tongue twister? I don't think I can do it. The sixth sick sheep's sick. The funny thing about this is it's literally just one noun phrase and a verb. That's all it is. The sixth sick sheep's sick. I'm going to post that for you. In fact, I'll put it on the screen so that people watching the video later can also see it. I don't know if I will post this video on the channel, by the way. This video might be private because it's just a Q&A. It's not really a full lesson. So I don't know if this will be on the channel later. It might be. This is the tongue twister. A sheikh is a guy from the United Arab Emirates. To be honest with you, I don't really understand who the sheikh are. They're a people, like the Celts or the Saxons, I guess. So the sixth sick sheik's sixth, the sixth sick sheik's sixth sheep's sick. So it is. They are good. They are good for practicing with your muscles, for sure. There's another one. If you want to practice your L and R, then you say red lorry, yellow lorry, and say it faster and faster. So it's red lorry, yellow lorry, 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 red lorry, yellow lorry. So if you can do that, that'll really help with your and sounds. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on. Pachu says, what are popular textbooks of C1 and C2 vocabulary books that are used in the UK? What do you mean by vocabulary books? I need you to clarify on that one, Pichu. So what do you mean? Oh, by the way, if anyone wants to join me on the notes, you can. I'll just post the notes straight away today. I'll be adding to those as we stream. So can you just clarify, Pachi, what do you mean by C1, C2 vocabulary books? Do you mean course books? Or do you mean books which contain just specific vocabulary? I need to know what you mean by a vocabulary book. And while you think about that, I will try to do something I was going to do. Yes, I'm going to add the notes into the link below the video. A book which contains C1 and C2 words. Okay. In general, so let's put this in the notes so people know what I'm talking about. In general, I recommend learning vocabulary in context, in authentic contexts, as you go. So, for example, as you're reading, listening, speaking to people, etc., you write down interesting phrases which you hear. So that's how I recommend learning vocabulary. I don't recommend learning vocabulary from thematic textbooks. If you do, however, if you do want to do this, it's best to accompany it with English lessons. E.g., for example, you have an English lesson on holidays and present perfect, and then you have homework to complete some thematic vocabulary on holidays, and some present perfect grammar. So if you want to learn from vocabulary books like that, then I would recommend accompanying that with classes, not just using it on its own. Really, the best thing is to learn things authentically. So find an authentic source, right? Find an authentic source. This is an authentic source right now, because I'm just speaking to you with natural English. So anything I say right now is authentic natural English, and it's in context, because if you understand what I'm saying right now and you're with me right now, then you understand this context with me. So this is an authentic source. Right now you are learning phrases related to instruction and related to English learning and related to vocabulary in general. What if you want to learn specific thematic vocabulary? Let's say, I need to improve my transport vocabulary. Then find an authentic thematic source. For example, if you want to improve your public transport vocabulary, then read a book, watch a video, or listen to a podcast about transport, preferably one which you find interesting. So that would be my recommendation. Steer clear of vocabulary books. And after all that, if you desperately want a vocabulary book, then you can't really go wrong with this one. Let me show you. It's Michael McCarthy and Felicity O'Dell, English Vocabulary in Use. English Vocabulary in Use. And I recommend that you get the level appropriate for you. The level you can see on the screen there is upper intermediate. I would suggest that you go to a bookshop, take a look at the pre-intermediate and intermediate levels first. And remember, you want it to be easy. So if you pick up this book and it's full of words you don't know, then don't do it. Go for the easier one first, and we can get to the more difficult stuff later. All right? Okay, moving on. Excuse me. So, Fluent English with me says, what level of English learners can teach someone English? This is an interesting question because it depends what you mean by teach someone. So, if you mean teach someone as a professional teacher, in my opinion, you need at least a good B1 to be able to start teaching absolute beginners the basics. Ideally, with your strength in pronunciation / natural speech. It doesn't matter if your grammar's a bit dodgy and your vocabulary is a bit dodgy, that's all right. Although the students will punish you for that. But because students hate it when your grammar's not good. I can tell you. But what you really need is good pronunciation and natural speech, because there's a lot of teachers out there who don't have very natural speech, and then it's very difficult to learn natural speech from a teacher who doesn't have natural speech. Whereas if you have a teacher with natural speech, you can learn the grammar on your own, right? But you need that model. So I think you need a good B1 to start. Okay? Now, how about teach a friend or peer something about English? Well, any level. So, an absolute beginner may have some interesting things to teach another absolute beginner. And we see this happen in the classroom all the time. It's called peer-to-peer learning or correction or teaching. And if you look on the internet for something called LDL, and you type interview and you type Jean-Paul Martin, then you'll find an interview that I did with the creator of a method called learning by teaching. And he's a very, very, very interesting guy. He's retired now. He's getting on a bit, but he's still a very interesting guy. It was lovely talking to him. And he told me all about learning by teaching and as a language learning method. However, he went on and used it for other things as well. But he really developed it strongly as a language learning method. So you can actually teach at any level because it's beneficial. It's beneficial for you to try to teach someone. It's beneficial for the other person. We might have the question, OMG, well, welcome to the process. What we actually find is that if you teach someone something which isn't correct, then at some point you find out, maybe you find out at the very moment because your student says, hey, that's not right. And you go, oh yeah, that's not right. And then you will remember it more. They will remember it more. You've had an authentic interaction. There are a lot of good rationales for why it's good to try to teach people stuff. Learning by teaching is a really powerful technique. So there are my comments about that. I am happy for follow-up questions, by the way. So if there's something I say in response to your question that you think is interesting or you would like to comment on, then of course, please do. And I'll do my best to answer that. And by the way, if you are joining us today, then it's a nice time to smash that like button and hit subscribe. Check out all of our streams. We stream on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. and Saturdays at 1 p.m. Why do we say it's out of whack? Nice. Out of whack. Yeah, that's like out of alignment. It's out of whack. Why is it whack, though? That's a really good question. I mean, with idioms, they're always really good questions because idioms are so weird, you know? It's they're all over the place. So I'm going to use my reference here. It's American slang, 19th century American slang, where whack referred to the state of proper functioning or condition. The exact origin of whack is unclear, so we don't know, but it might result to the idea of hitting something into place. So like you hit it and it's in place and you've whacked it in the correct place. Whack with your hand. So that's the idea of being out of whack. From 19th century US slang, where whack meant functioning correctly or in place. So that's the idea. You whack it into place. Whack. By the way, we still use whack to mean like a slap or hit. So there you go. No, there's no such thing as being in whack. Or maybe there was in the 19th century, but it doesn't make any sense to us now. We just have the idea of being out of whack. Oh, Maria del Carmen, what are you doing to me? Do you think Aristotle, we've got Aristoteles there, a bit of a Spanish version of Aristotle for English people. We just say Aristotle. Do you think Aristotle was right in separating the divine body from spirit? Oh, let me just have a drink of my coffee. I think you might be a bit confused there, Maria del Carmen, because what you are describing sounds like Plato. So Plato was like a rationalist, which is something like reason is ultimate truth, or even the only truth. But Aristotle was like an empiricist. By the way, empiricism and rationalism didn't exist in the time of Plato and Aristotle, so really they can't genuinely be rationalists or empiricists, but we can look back on them and say, oh, they seem like they would agree with this. So Aristotle was like an empiricist. So empiricism is, you look at loads of stuff happening, and when things happen in a certain way, you look for patterns, and then you decide that's the truth because look at that pattern. So Aristotle was actually much more concerned with a scientific view, much more concerned with a kind of materialist view, really. So I'm not sure that he had anything to say about separating divine body from spirit. Actually, I'm not sure that Aristotle would say there's any separation with the body and anything else. For Aristotle, it's all here, actually. However, he made those conclusions before science was as developed as it is. With science being the way it is now, who knows what Aristotle would think? But back then, in ancient Greece, he thought it was all here. Now, he did divide the person into functions, but Aristotle divided everything into functions. For example, he would say that this cup has the function of being hard and black and cold, or not cold, hard and black, and it can contain a liquid and it can fall and stuff like that, right? And he saw these functions and qualities as being separate parts that make the whole thing, but he very much thought of them as being all this one thing with separate functions. You can't take the blackness out of the cup, according to Aristotle. So I don't think, when you say separating divine body from spirit, I don't think that's quite right. Maybe you can clarify, though. I might have you confused. How has teaching English impacted your personal and professional life? Okay, let me have a think about that. I'm poorer. I shouldn't say that as the first thing, should I? I've learned a lot of things. A lot of things. I've learned a lot of things. I've changed as a person. I'm more sociable. I'm better at public speaking. More confident socially, to be honest. So I've learned a lot of things, changed as a person. I am poorer. So let's keep that. It's true. For now. I have plans. It just took me 16 years to get going, all right? Still going. And you did ask about professional life anyway. Can't think of anything else poignant. Maybe that'll do for now. Yeah. I think that'll do. But it steered my direction as well. I have a great... I have a greater sense of fulfillment. I often look forward to work. Or maybe would be more correct to say I've never looked forward to work so much as I have as a teacher. So I never looked forward to work previously, or very rarely. But now, sometimes I look forward to work. After 16 years, it's not bad. Not bad. But the money thing is tough with teaching. It's not just me, it's all teachers. All teachers. All right, Dan, can I turn this sentence, the surface is too smooth or wet, making it difficult to grip, into an adjective clause? The surface is too smooth or wet, which makes it... Yeah, of course. Is that an adjective clause? Which one of those is an adjective clause? Both your examples look fine to me. I'm just trying to work out what you mean by adjective clause. Which makes it difficult to grip. Yeah, of course. I mean, the part that's difficult to grip is an adjective clause in both cases. So where does the adjective clause change? Too smooth and wet, which makes it difficult to grip. Or do you mean like you want to say the difficult to grip surface? Like something like that? Which, yes, you can do that as well, but you need to be a bit creative. You need to be a bit creative with the language to do this and get away with it. But, you know, philosophers, journalists, and so on do this kind of stuff all the time. You have to clarify. Could it be possible to talk about reduced relative clauses, especially about one of the rules that we add ing to the verb? I've got to admit, I really dislike reduced relative clauses. I really dislike them as a grammar area honestly, for a few reasons. I mean, for one, we don't use them very much. I mean, we do use them, but we don't use them very much. And for two, they often, there's no easy logical way to explain them, because sometimes they get a bit weird. They get a bit weird. Adding ing to the verb. Let me try. So this is the basic idea of a reduced relative clause, that you have a relative clause, which is this one, the guy who is helping us, the relative clause being who is helping us. And we can reduce that by just taking out who is, and say the guy helping us is my friend. It gets a little bit more complicated when you can say something like, the guy who helps us on Fridays is my friend, and we can still say the guy helping us on Fridays is my friend. Although we do lose something in this transformation, but you can do it. So again, we can do it. You notice there the form has changed as well. That's the basic idea of reduced relative clauses. I think maybe I'll just leave it at that. And if you'd like to know more, you need to ask specific questions about it. All right. Bavia says, given the fluid nature of language and meaning, is it possible for any written text in English to convey a single, unambiguous meaning? How does this impact legal and philosophical texts? Right. That's an easy one. From me. I would like to say that this is definitely a controversial question, which will have many different answers for different people. But here's my answer. Is it possible for any written text in English to convey a single, unambiguous meaning? No. How does this impact legal and philosophical texts? Massively and all the time. And in some ways, interpretation is everything. So that's it, Pavia. I don't know if you have a follow-up question to that, but that's it. There can be no single unambiguous meaning of anything. It's impossible. You can try. It's impossible. And it totally impacts legal and philosophical texts all the time, at both an obvious surface level and at a deep and very sophisticated, complex level that's difficult to describe. But, you know, if we could look at a surface level interpretation where, for example, in the Constitution of the United States, is it the Constitution or maybe the Declaration of Independence? Hold on. Yes, it's the Declaration of Independence. So, in the Declaration of Independence, the founding fathers of the United States used the phrase, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Now, when they said that, they had rather an interesting perspective on what a man was. Really, they really had an interesting perspective on what man was. They really meant Englishmen. A lot of them were Englishmen, and they had a very Christian English perspective and a very Northern European perspective. And they thought, when they said men, what they meant is us. All us guys, right? All us English thinking Christian Northern European guys. That's what they thought. They did not have the understanding that they were offering to every human the self-evident truth of being equal. They didn't believe that. And it's very easy to see that they didn't believe that. You can look at them, many of them owned slaves. The ones that didn't own slaves had interesting views on race and so on and so on. So they absolutely did not believe that this meant everyone. They meant them. However, now, of course, we interpret this to mean everyone. So we've completely changed our interpretation. Now, that's what I would call a surface level issue with this idea of interpretation, something which I think is quite simple to see that the interpretation can change and be different. I think it can go a lot deeper than that, to the extent that actually everything is about agreed convention. There is no absolute true meaning of text, art, communication, what I'm saying now. There just isn't. It's all agreed convention, communication, and so on. Which I would hope that that's reflected in my teaching. I try to teach a bit like that. What we really should be aim to be doing is to improve our skills as communicators, collaborators, and improve our skills in deducing meaning from context and expressing ourselves and so on, rather than trying to find absolute truth in something which has no absolute truth. If you want absolute truth, turn to God. That's the only place you'll find absolute truth. Or you can try Descartes, who actually also says turn to God. So, yeah. All right, next. What does it mean, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? It's a fun word sung by Julie Andrews to children in a fun song in a children's show. That's it. That's what it means. If it means anything, it means woohoo. That's what it means. What do these phrases mean? Take it to the limit and push it to the limit. Take it to the limit and push it to the limit pretty much mean the same thing, and they mean max it out. Max it out. Take it to the limit, max it out. Max it out. Maximize it. Set it to maximum. Right? Take it to the limit. So, in the context of a race, a car race, take it to the limit would mean go as fast as possible, for example. So that's what it means. Rich, what's your most satisfying teacher experience where the student got some great results, and worst experience, the student was terrible, maybe you even dropped them? Have you ever dropped the student? Dear me, Zoya. I have to be careful with this. It's very difficult to say about my most satisfying teacher experience. I have lots of satisfying teacher experiences, and I have lots of memories in my head of times when I've taught someone something and they've reacted and it's been amazing. I have some very fulfilling moments from teaching teenagers, moments that really blew my mind, and children as well, and adults and retirees. I taught some 65 plus year olds in Spain, some retired people, and we were learning basic English, and it was very rewarding. And they bought me some gifts. They bought me a box of oranges, a big box of oranges, very big box of oranges, which in Valencia is like a lot of respect. They were lovely people. Yeah, I miss them, actually. I often miss students, you know. I often think back and I wonder where they are and how they're doing, but I wouldn't know how to contact them. And even if I did, I'm not sure it would be appropriate. But I do wonder. I do think sometimes. So loads of rewarding moments. It's very difficult to say just one. My current students obviously offer me a lot of rewarding moments, particularly because the classes mean so much to them. Some of them really don't have a lot. Some of them don't have a home. They don't have... All they've got is a smartphone, ironically. That's what they have. A smartphone, some clothes, that's it. And the classes are very important to them. And then they'll buy me a present. And I'm just like, wow, you're going to buy me a present when you don't have anything? What are you doing? You know, don't do that. Don't do that, by the way. But it's lovely. It's lovely to have that stuff, you know. And I have started to acquire these things now. Little card which says thank you, the best teacher, and you know, things that go on the wall and stuff. And it strokes your ego, but you know that it meant a lot to the students. Actually, it makes me a little bit sad about myself because then I start to think of times when I've given not very good lessons, and I start to think, oh, I feel bad now. Like they've said all this great stuff about me, and I gave them some lessons that were like, you know. But hey ho, there you go. So loads of rewarding experience. As for terrible, it's interesting that you phrased this about a terrible student and maybe you dropped them. Let me be totally honest with you. Sometimes students drop me. That happens, you know, for a variety of reasons. But sometimes they don't like the style, you know. They don't like the way I teach, and that's it. And that's okay, you know. It's taken me probably 16 years to start not taking that personally and just realize, hey, look, someone wants something that's more rigid, more grammar-based, and they know they're not going to find that with me, then that's okay. That is okay. I do very much believe in horses for courses. Mentioned it a few times. So I do believe that you should go out and find the right teacher for you. As long as students are honest with me about that and they don't go above my head. I don't particularly like that. When someone talks to my talk to me first if you don't like the class. And then we'll go from there. So, as for me dropping a student and a terrible experience with a student, there have been a few. It's not so much a terrible experience with a student, but I'll tell you what you have, Zoya. Sometimes you have a student who's not improving, and you either have no idea how to make them improve, or you think that for them to improve, they need to change something and they won't do it, and they're not doing it. And even despite that, they continue with classes. They continue, but they don't necessarily get better. And I remember a few occasions of this. And those classes actually are very difficult. And what tends to happen with me in those classes is I become detached from them. And over time, I move away from them. And at some point, I just let it drop. Because people are paying for your classes, and if you just go kind of hands off with things, then eventually they will drop. Because, you know, if you want to keep your students, at some point you have to ask them for the bill. You know, time to pay. And to be honest, I don't feel great about that, because that feels like a defeat. It's like I've given up. I haven't been able to help that person. And honestly, I don't have the answer to say, is it possible for everyone to succeed or to improve in English? Is it possible for everyone to reach, let's say, a good advanced level where they feel comfortable and sound natural? Is that possible? I don't know, but if it is possible, I don't know how to do it for everyone yet. But of course, that's the challenge of being a teacher, that you're always trying and exploring and looking for new ways to do things. So yeah, but it is quite sad. And one of the things that's quite challenging about that situation as well, Zoya, is even if you're upfront with the student, they just don't get it. You know, it's like you can be like, look, we've had 30 classes, right? You need to start doing the homework. If you do, let me guarantee now, if you don't start doing the homework, you will not improve. So that's number one, you need to do the homework. Number two, you need to start doing whatever they need to start doing. It can be different things, okay? You need to start practicing pronunciation outside of class. You need to start doing X, Y, Z, whatever there is. As a teacher, it's my role to give these kind of prescriptions. It's not just about teaching in class at all. A lot of it is about guiding outside of class. The class should just be a guidance for what the student is going to do with the rest of their week. You want to fill their mind with things that they will think about throughout the week that relate back to the class. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, you know? You just get the people who show up, they do the same thing, and then off they go. And what can you do about that? I don't know. But I think what's even more interesting is they'll keep coming back as well. There's something about your lesson that they like, and they're like, yeah, you know, I want to keep going. But then when you tell them you need to do this, this, and this, otherwise you're just going to stay with this wall, and they just don't do it. You know, and honestly, I really don't know if that's me or the student. I mean, there might be a thing going on with me that I'm approaching it wrong. Maybe I'm offering them the wrong technique. Maybe I need some new avenues for them to look at in order to improve. You know, maybe that's the next level. But that, as I said before, that's the constant challenge of being a teacher, is trying to improve and to reach people like that. It's very hard to have a leave no one behind mentality as a teacher. I don't think I've ever known a teacher who is able to leave no one behind. Judging from what people say in the staff room. You always get the good and the bad students, you know. And when I say leave no one behind, you can get everyone through the exam. That's not the problem, all right? We are experts at getting people through exams. We can get you through the exam, all right? No problem. You want your IELTS 7.5, we'll get you that for sure. But can we actually get you to that lovely, comfortable level of English that you want? Well, I think a lot of that depends on you. A lot of that depends on you. And if you're one of those 10% at the bottom, no, not 10%, that's too much, maybe 5%. those kind of outliers who are really tricky, it can get tough. It can get tough. Learning languages is tough. It's tough. It's emotionally tough. It's mentally difficult. Someone the other day was talking about age and how age affects things, you know. Is it possible to learn English from scratch when you're 70, for example? I mean, I instantly will say yes, because I've had the experience of teaching people who are 70 and they'll learn it. However, they were very sharp. They were people who had kept their mind sharp, you know? So they were thinkers, they were readers, they were people who could learn still. What about a 70-year-old who spent 45 years driving a bus and doesn't read and, I don't know, just watches the news every day in their own language? I don't know. Anyway, yes, teaching is rewarding, teaching is challenging, and teaching is ever interesting. Good evening from Vietnam, says Duy Tinh Cao. Chào, chào. Chào. Chào em. Chào em. Em ơi. Cà phê xóa đó. Anh thích cà phê xóa đó. Xóa đó. Anh thích cà phê xóa đó. Okay. Chật bưng làm ơi. Okay. I need to expand my Vietnamese a little bit more. Wait, do I have some other Vietnamese? No, not right now. Sorry, it's not coming to me. I'm trying though. I'm trying. And hello. Hello. What's G? I think I missed that actually. Oh, you're new. Oh, well, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Let's have a look what Anawat says here. If Noah Webster had never existed, would English still be the same in both countries? Why did he have a dislike for British English? I'm going to be honest here, Anawat. I have no idea about what you're talking about there. However, I'm going to tell you this. There is 0% chance that English would be the same standard in American and British ever. There's just no way that would ever be possible. Even if there was no War of Independence and the United States was still part of the United Kingdom, I am pretty certain that it would just be impossible. So I would say it's basically impossible that this standard would be almost the same or the same in any imaginable scenario. And why did he have a dislike for British English? I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know who Noah Webster is. So I imagine he's something to do with Merriam-Webster dictionary or something. But I would say he probably didn't like the British. Just a guess. Desperately. I'm lost. Is there any difference between solicitor and lawyer? Yes, there is. Solicitor is more about paperwork and official documents. For example, writing legal letters, signing official documents, etc. Lawyer is more of a general term for a solicitor, barrister, etc., etc. one of my monitors just died and then come back on. I'm a little bit worried about that. But there you go. Whoa, I think I think I missed half the chat then, and my thing just caught up and I got an explosion of emojis. Did you see that? That was awesome. Let me try and get back to where we are here. If I've missed your question, let me know. Pachu, how can we improve fluency? Can I find this in the chat here? Seems like there was all kinds of stuff going on in chat and I was not aware of it. Okay, Pachu says, how can we improve fluency? Can you provide a method and timing every day? How many hours does it take for a person to become fluent? That's not an easy question, Pachu. I mean, how can we improve fluency? Yes, we can go through that. Can you provide method and timing? I think for method and timing, I need to know more about you. So really, I can't just prescribe for everyone how many hours a day, what time, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of difficult to provide something very general in terms of that. How can we improve fluency? How many hours would it take for a person to become fluent? Again, that very much depends on the person. Let me give you a guide, though. Okay? A guide. So, British Council research shows that it takes about 200 hours of instruction for a diligent student to move between levels. So 200 hours of instruction means 200 hours in class with a teacher, right? And the British Council tends to teach 3 hours a week. So with 200 hours, we're basically talking a year per level. So it's about a year per level in terms of what the British Council say. So that's A1, A2, B1, B2, C1. However, realistically, you can do these three really quickly, especially if you just want to learn the main grammar and so on. You can do it super quickly. And then this one will take you forever, and this one will take you even longer. C1, you'll just stay at forever. All right. Even people who have a C2 qualification, they're not C2, right? You know, I've never met a student who has a C2 qualification who I don't think is C1, and I would put in a C1 class. Honestly, I've never met a student with a C2 qualification that I would not put in a C1 class. That's the reality. So C1 is really as high as you need to be. Can you get to C1 in 5 years from nothing? Yeah. Can you get there quicker? Yeah. If you're a real hard worker, it's tough though. If you want to do this in 3 years, that's really tough. And not possible for everyone, but you can do it. You can go from nothing to C1 in 3 years. It's really tough, but it's possible. Now, what about fluency? That's a similar thing. It's going to take, at best, 3 years, and you can become what I would call very fluent. You can become quite fluent after 2 years if you work really hard. and you love it and you're good. Okay? Then let's move on to how to improve fluency. How to improve fluency. So, fluency is an overarching skill which covers a number of connected and overlapping sub-skills. Okay? These include pronunciation and loads of sub-skills of pronunciation, such as connected speech, linking words and sounds, sentence stress, etc. Okay, loads of pronunciation stuff. Other sub-skills included in fluency are phrasal vocabulary, coherence, paraphrasing, grammaring, which is utilizing grammar on the spot, etc. Okay, so fluency is actually a whole load of different sub-skills. So improving any of these sub-skills will improve your fluency. Like, for example, if you work on your connected speech, if you work on your linking sounds, if you work on your sentence stress, that will all help your fluency. If you work on your paraphrasing, that will help your fluency, right? And if you work on your grammaring, which is very quickly using grammatical structures, that'll help your fluency. Actually, the most important one, in my opinion, is phrasal vocabulary. But of course, you need all of them. You need everything. So, techniques for improving it. Auto-narration. Talking to yourself. Speaking out loud with others. Speaking in your head with imaginary people. I'm serious, by the way. Shadowing, which is listening to 2 to 3 seconds of English, pause, reflect / remember the sounds, and then imitate and check. Shadowing. And keeping a vocabulary notebook of phrases, max 3 to 5 new phrases per day. So that's what I would say for improving fluency. And do you want me to just generally prescribe method and timing? Depends on the person, but generally 15 to 30 minutes every day. Use at least 3 different approaches. So I don't want you to spend 15 minutes a day doing shadowing every day. No. You do shadowing, then do some grammaring, then do some auto-narration, then do some, right? You've got to mix it up. It's like the gym, right? You don't just do arms, right? Otherwise you end up with massive arms, but you can't do anything else. Okay? So you need to do lots of different things. But just 15 to 30 minutes per day minimum. And I would say critically, if you feel sick of English or bored, then take a break and find a new approach. Okay? This should not be boring or something you don't want to do. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. That's not how you learn a language. You don't learn a language by forcing yourself to hammer the pure, okay? Ain't gonna work. You gotta love it. So, well, love it's a bit strong. You've got to enjoy it. So, if you're doing something over and over again, it starts to be like, oh, here we go. Do something else. Find a new way. But, as I said, most important thing is depends on the person. So, I would need to meet you, assess your level, find out where you are, what are your strengths, what's your personality, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Dancers, how can I use this phrase, feel like to be? Haven't you said this to me before? You asked this question like last week, and it didn't make any sense then. Still doesn't make any sense, Dan. Okay? It doesn't matter how many times you ask me this, it's not going to make any sense. You're going to have to give me more context. I'll tell you what this looks like. This looks like that, and that structure you do not follow it to be. You follow it with a noun or a clause. Subject plus predicate. I don't know how you can use that with a to infinitive. So I need more context, Dan. Don't understand it. Zero in English says dwi. We think zero. Yeah, let's have a look then. Zero, nothing, naught. O, like 01325 for a phone number. 07382. How else do we say zero? Is that it? Zilch. Nada. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. All right, enough. What role does power play in the evolution of the English language norms and standards? Are you learning about this, Pavia? Are you studying linguistics right now? Oh dear. Power. Power is important in the idea of language norms and standards. Power is important, but also power has a reciprocal, which I can't spell, relationship to some extent with society. Especially in English. Historically, the English do not tolerate despots well. By the way, other countries do. I've seen other countries tolerate despots. We don't. We're easily manipulated. I admit that. Our politicians can manipulate the English so easily, and they do. But if the English knew, if they knew they were being manipulated, if they saw a despot, they don't react well. Yes, we do not stomach despots here. So, a despot, by the way, is a dictator, fascist leader. So, power has a reciprocal relationship with society, and so although the standards are top down, the people who make the standards always have to be careful if they want to keep the power they have. And when people try to use power to change language in a way which people don't like or think is disrespectful, it doesn't work. And you can see that at the moment. For the past 10 to 15 years, academia has been desperately trying to change the definition of certain words and to add words to the language and so on and so on. And it is not being tolerated. And now they're losing their power. People are ignoring them. Right? They really are. If someone says the term microaggression, they lose all credibility immediately. It might be that nobody says that they lose credibility. Nobody says like, whoa, okay, I'm not listening to you. But everybody thinks it. And that's it for their authority. It's gone. They've said a crazy thing. And we all know it. So, yeah, that's my talk about that. The power right now rests with politically minded academics and the media and politicians, of course. But I don't think they can change the language in the way they want. I mean, to be honest, I think 4chan has more actual effect on the English language right now than all the powerful academics, journalists, and so on combined. So a ridiculous and toxic forum on the internet has more power to change the English language than the system. So that I guess tells you a lot about their power. But power is important. I mean, really, it's where the power is might not be obvious. That's all. Okay. Moving on. Pachu, can you give advice to revise exam preparation? Yeah, I can. Practice the exam. Find what you're weak at. Practice that part as much as possible with as many scenarios as possible. If possible, get specific exam strategies from a good private teacher. How do metaphors in the English language influence cognitive processes? For example, does using war metaphors to describe arguments affect the way we engage in them? Yeah, that's fascinating. I would love to study this, actually. I think there's a lot to be said about this. And I remember hearing, I don't know much about arguments, but I remember hearing that business uses the language of war, and sexual relationships use the language of food. I found that interesting, right? Because in business, it's things like acquisition, right? Or takeover, right? Things like that. Targets. And, well, can I give examples for sexual relationships that are using the language of food? Gotta be careful here. Delicious. Maybe not delicious. Tasty. Okay. Maybe this was a bad topic. Tasty. Let me think of something a little bit more down to earth. Sexual relationships use the language of food. Spicy. Okay. I'm not sure I can answer this question further. Okay, where were we? What was this question about? Do metaphors influence cognitive process? Yes, I think they do. Yeah, I think they do. What's my actual answer to this? I think they do. I think that language both informs and is informed by our mood, our personality and thought processes. And I think that's part of the reason why in different cultures you see different ways of saying stuff. Because I think collectively the culture has a way of thinking, and that way of thinking comes out in the language, but also the language reinforces that way of thinking. So it's actually a symbiotic relationship. It's a symbiotic relationship between thought and language. And this kind of symbiotic relationship, I think, exists on an individual level, but it also exists on a cultural level. So it exists both for the individual, but also for the superego or the collective consciousness of a culture or group of people. So yeah, I 100% believe that. 100%. And I would love to study it. I think it's fascinating. Like, for example, in English, we say, I am English. And we also say, I am happy today. I am happy, right? Whereas the Spanish, they say, soy. They say, soy español. With a ñ, which I can't do because I don't know how to do that on the keyboard. They say soy español, but they say estoy, what do they say for happy? You can say feliz or estoy contento. So you can see the Spanish, they have a different way to say I am Spanish and I am happy. It's like I am Spanish, but I am right now I'm happy. I'm in the state of happy. And I 100% think that this affects how we think. Totally. I definitely think that this affects how we think. I do think that English people identify very strongly with their feelings. They think of them more as being a fixed thing, whereas Spanish people better accept the coming and going of feelings. Like, oh, what are you doing? Now I'm really like this and really like this and really like this. And now we're buddies. It's okay. right? But I think English people are a bit less like that. All right. That was fun. Thank you for that question. That's the most I've ever laughed on stream. I did it to myself, but it was fun. I hope you guys are laughing as well. I wasn't just weirdly laughing to myself. Glad to study with you, Rich. Yeah, I'd love to see you again, sweeting. Why do I take too long to say? Why do I take so long to say something in English? I speak one sentence, then I pause, and it repeats. I want to speak English without stopping like you. Teacher. It's just practice, Plavi. Just practice. That's normal. It's practice. You need to practice fluency more. Auto-narration. Speaking English to yourself in your head. Etc, etc. That's what it is. Practice, 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 practice. Practice, Plavi. It's all you need. Practice. Okay, that's it. Totally natural to go through that process, by the way. It's completely impossible to not go through that process, Plavi. You just got to practice. And by the way, I can absolutely tell, Pallavi, that you are at the intermediate plateau. The intermediate plateau is defined by the frustration that you express here. How can I know which tense I should use? That's a little bit general there, Mr. Mohammed. That's a little bit general. How can I know which tense I should use? It's like the answer to that is learn everything possible about the language for every possible situation. No, I mean, seriously, how can I know which tense I should use? You need to be more specific. So I need a specific situation, exact situation, and you tell me how to know what tense I should use. By the way, another good answer for this is listen to a native talking in a similar situation. Listen for a phrase which has the function you want. What tense do they use? Of course, Mujahid, you can definitely ask me a question about research methodology. However, do bear in mind that I don't know very much about research methodology. I have tried this method altogether, but it does not work for me. That's interesting there, Maria. What do you mean by you've tried this method and it doesn't work for you? Can you be a bit more specific? Because I'm quite interested now in what you said there. Where can I publish my works of English? I need to know more about that, Pallavi. What do you mean? Publish what works of English? What's the antonym of collect? It depends on what the context of collect is, but probably it is. So collect, deliver, probably. Depends on the context, though. I need more context, but I'm going to say deliver. Can we say micro-pregnancy? No. Who said that? What the hell is a micro-pregnancy? No idea. Please give a simple way to review literature for a thesis. Are you kidding? Are you serious, Isaac? What can I tell you, man? Like, a simple way to review literature for a thesis? Use ChatGPT 4.0, not the free one. Pay for it. Okay. That's my simplest possible answer. But more complex answer. And by the way, I'll put my name to this one because I think this is a bit more respectful. Read 2 or 3 critical modern papers relating to your area then go through the bibliography and speed read all of them, and then choose about 10 to focus on. There you go. That's my advice. And make use of online research systems. It's much easier than going through libraries, and if you can find the online PDFs and stuff, hopefully your university has access to that. It's a lot simpler. That's my advice there. Okay, here we go. Research methodology. Chapters, designing, framework of research, dedication, acknowledgement. Oh. Research. I don't think I can really help with this, to be honest. I think a lot of research is poorly conducted, to be honest, especially in the social sciences. I don't think that a lot of students, I mean, even lecturers don't seem to fully understand statistical analysis. They don't understand p-values. I had lecturers in applied linguistics who didn't really know what a p-value was. I mean, they could give me the definition of a p-value, but they didn't fully grasp the implications and significance of a p-value. And actually, a lot of people don't. They just a number and go, boom, p-value, got it, done. Statistically significant, hurrah! I actually think if people understand p-values, they start to become extremely skeptical of a lot of studies, right? Let me explain. Okay, so p-value in statistics is a measurement used to determine the chance that the results of a study were due to random chance. Okay? So, for example, if you have a p-value of 0.05, right, then that means that there is a... Wait, let me get this right. There's a 1 in 20 chance that your results were due to randomness. Okay? That's what that means. If you do your analysis and you find a p-value 0.05, that means there's a 1 in 20 chance that your results were totally random and you didn't actually discover anything. Now, according to academia, that is called a significant result, because what they say is statistical significance is when p is greater than or equal to 0.05. So that means you can have a study which has a 1 in 20 chance of being totally random, and it's accepted by the scientific community as being significant. So, what do? Well, you run your study 20 times until you get the result that you want, and then bingo! You have your study and you have the result you want, and your p-value is 0.05. There's only a 1 in 20 chance that it's totally random. Oh, dear me. Okay, I'm done talking about this. It's not my area of expertise, Mujahid. I'm sorry. I'm not much of a researcher. I find intellectual discussions fascinating. I find reading research papers fascinating. But research methodology, it's not my forte, sir. Sorry. Dan, what is the difference between the two sentences? The child got his finger stuck in between the chairs, and the child's finger got stuck in between the chairs. They're actually quite different, Dan. They're quite different. So the first sentence is that the child did it, and it's his fault, and he's the agent who did it. Okay? The second sentence is a passive form, which may indicate that it's not his fault at all. So, yeah, that's what I would say about that, Dan. Speaking another language is always embarrassing, Pallavi. It's just something that happens. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Maria del Carmen. Exactly right. Of course, you don't want to pause for 10 seconds. You've got to think more, but you just got to practice, Pallavi. Don't get hung up about pausing. All right? It's a natural phase. You need patient interlocutors. Just be patient with yourself. Keep practicing, all right? You can't pick up a guitar and start going, right, I've got my guitar, now I'm going to play Jimi Hendrix. No, okay, no. You're going to pick up a guitar, all right, and you're going to start with Bob Dylan. Jing, 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 jing. Okay? You gotta, it's one step at a time. As they say, don't run before you can walk. Just practice. Nice and easy, nice and slow, nice and patient. Let go of the frustration. Let go of the frustration. Take it easy. Slow down a bit. Just for fun. Be someone who speaks deliberately, slowly. Who creates interesting pauses in order to captivate the audience's attention. Don't let your frustration get the better of you. What are the philosophical implications of polysemy of many English words? Where are you getting this stuff from, Pavia? Sorry. Am I doing your assignments for you here? First of all, number one, all words in all languages have polysemy. So let's not limit this to English. Okay. And what are the philosophical implications? What are the philosophical implications? The philosophical implications. I think you're going to need to clarify what you mean by philosophical implications. Do you mean the impact on philosophy, or do you mean the existential implications? Do you mean about knowledge, justification, and doubt? Do you mean the philosophy of art? Like, what are we talking about here? I think I need that to be narrowed down before I can answer it, Pavia. I enjoy the question, though. Thank you. Micro-pregnancy has the same sense as microaggression. Does it? I don't know. I have no idea what micro-pregnancy is. What's that? I mean, I didn't really know what microaggression. What is microaggression? I have no idea. Okay, I don't. As far as I can tell, microaggression is just something made up by people who want to control you. They want to control your behavior, And they basically want a way of saying like, you're bad and I'm good. And then they invented this word microaggression. That's it. Now, if it's bullying, if it means bullying, then we call it bullying, not microaggression, okay? Bullying is bullying, and bullying sucks. And I'm a teacher, and if I find someone doing bullying, they're going to be in big trouble. So bullying is bullying. That's fine. You know, we'll deal with that as bullying. But if it's bullying, we call it bullying, not microaggression, right? Screw that microaggression stuff. Micro-pregnancy? No idea. Don't get it. What the hell? Is it rude? It depends. It depends. Pallavi. Pallavi and Pavia mixed up. It's because you've changed your name to Detective P. It's confusing me, all right? Pallavi, what the hell? Is it rude? Depends on the context and person. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 6. Okay? Where the F word is an 8.5. Okay? The C word is a 9.5. And the N word is a 10, then I would say that what the hell is a 6, and bloody is a 5.5. Okay, something like that. There you go. Vanilla Comment says, I have to study in 45 minutes to be fluent, but I can work with all skills in 30 minutes. I have studied 45 minutes to be fluent, but I can work with all skills in 30 minutes. Do you mean one session of 30 minutes where you do all skills? Does that work for you? That seems a bit too diverse for me. So I would focus on one technique or skill for at least 30 minutes. And normally what I'll do in a class is we'll have 2 primary focuses in 3 hours. So in 3 hours, we might focus on meaning from context and giving presentations. And we'll combine them, but we'll focus on them as skills as well. And that's in 3 hours. So that would be how I'd do a class. I would pretty much never do a class where you do like a bit of like loads of different skills, although it could be interesting, but I just don't think it's that beneficial. I think you need to tune in and do some work specifically on that skill, but we need some variety over the week. We don't just do the same thing all week. What kind of research are done in sociology and psychology? Loads of stuff. What do you want me to say about that? Everything. Sociology and psychology do loads of stuff. All kinds of stuff about how society works, how people operate, behavior. Yeah. How does the linguistic feature of polysemy complicate communication and understanding? Complicate communication and understanding. Well, okay. Mind-blowing. It blew up my computer as well. So that was interesting. We are back. Where is... I can't find Pallavi's question now either. But okay. How does... I'm going to just write it here. How does polysemy... Okay. How does polysemy complicate communication? So this I can answer. This I can answer. Or what are the implications, you said, or something? As communication is primarily contextual, polysemy is relatively unimportant in terms of accurately expressing oneself, being understood, and understanding others. I actually think the only time that polysemy is really going to be an issue for you is if one, you're speaking to someone with a limited vocabulary. 2, you're speaking to a bad actor or unsympathetic listener. Or 3, someone is joking around with you. That's it. I think that's the only time, they're the only times when polysemy is a problem. So in general, I don't think that polysemy is a big deal for communication or the implications of communication. Right. Oh, wow. Pallavi, you've read Paradise Lost by John Milton. Respect. I've heard a lot about, I'm going to be honest, I've never read Paradise Lost, but I have a lot of respect for John Milton. I love things that people say about John Milton. So I should read it, but never read it. As for hell, hell could be a lot of things. I don't want to get too theological here. Don't want to get too theological. But let me give you the Christian definition. Hell is separation from God forever. That's the Christian definition. Hell is the eternal separation from God. And anything else we say about that, we would have to do a lot of interpretation and discussing it and so on and so on. Now, what does it mean to be separated from God? You have to talk a bit about that, but it's something like despair, hopelessness, lack of peace, no love, something like that. But anyway, hell is supposed to be a state of eternal separation from God. Yeah. What else we got? Dan. I think I shouldn't have used make have in this sentence. The child made his finger. Yeah, made doesn't work, actually. Made doesn't work. Made doesn't work at all. I'm going to experiment in a minute, try and find out why my computer crashed, because I think I pressed some weird stuff, but it did just boom, power out. I'll check the logs as well. But had, actually, it works, but it's weird. It could mean a few things. One, it could be saying that he was in the state of having his finger stuck. Two, it could be saying that a bully did, or it could be saying that someone did it to him as punishment or revenge for something. Like we sometimes say something like, oh, they had their windows broken because somebody didn't like them. They had their windows broken. So we could say that he had his finger stuck, as in someone stuck it. But then also it could be saying that he had his finger stuck, could be he was in the state of having his finger stuck. But made don't work. That's great, Pavia. I love those kind of questions. I love talking about that stuff. I wonder specifically what area you're working on. I would personally absolutely love, and I've been talking about this with my wife a lot recently, and she's very supportive, but I would absolutely love to go back into academia. I would love to do a PhD, but honestly, I don't have the time and money, and I can't justify it. But I'd love to do it. I'd love to go back and do it. I mean, my name is ProfRich. It's getting a bit embarrassing that's my brand when I don't actually have a PhD and people keep asking me questions about research and stuff. But no, I'd love to have the opportunity. Unfortunately, I don't quite see how that's going to happen. I guess if I ended up working for a university, it might happen as a part-time thing. That's a possibility. I'd quite like that. But for the moment, we will take things as God provides them. What's this, pure care? Buddhist says hell is another world which is mental punishments handled by Mara, who punish those who've done bad. Again, there's a lot of interpretation to talk about there. There's a lot of interpretation to talk about there because Mara is Mara not also the suffering that exists in the world? And we can be in these kind of states of hell, which from a Buddhist perspective, you could say that is separation from God. If we start to define God as being pure consciousness with an awareness of the self, the no self, and in a state of equanimity. So if we start to define God as being this sort of state of equanimity and peace and conscious awareness and so on, then we can start to see parables between Buddhism and other belief systems. Now, obviously, you know that personally I'm a Christian, so, well, personally I'm a Christian. So I believe that you should all accept Jesus as the Son of God and your Savior. Really. Investigate it, see what you think. I'd be happy to talk about it. But hey, I'm an English teacher right now, so maybe I shouldn't get into that too much. And hello there to Sunshine in the chat. Wow, it's good to see you. I was just about to wrap up as well, but I feel like I should go in a little bit longer just to give everyone a chance to say hello to Daisy while I absolutely wrap up here. Oh, it's been a bit of a ride today. How long have we been streaming for? It feels like we've been streaming forever. 2 hours. That's why my voice is going, and that's why I'm absolutely starving. So I am going to wrap up now. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. I wish you all a lovely, lovely, loving, peaceful, and happy weekend. And I do hope that your English studies are going well. And I hope that you take some motivation from these streams. If anything, I hope that the topics inspire you to get more involved in reaching your learning goals, your English goals, as well as whatever other goals you have going on. My job as a teacher is to engage, inspire, and the job of actually teaching I see as being quite low on the list of things that a teacher should do. I know that sounds wild, but it is my perspective. I think there's a lot of very bad teachers out there who actually teach well, but they don't do the other stuff well, which makes them bad teachers. If you're a boring teacher who teaches stuff well, it don't work, you know? You could be great at explaining things, but if your lessons are boring, you're only going to reach the very intelligent students who will study well on their own anyway. You know, not even necessarily intelligent, but just the studious students who will diligently study whatever happens. Then the boring teacher who's good at explaining, very good at explaining only, they'll just reach that people at the top of the pyramid. But I think that lessons should be about engaging everyone. It's holistic, isn't it? Not just about analyzing language. It's about using language and engaging with different topics and treating people as people, not as robots absorbing the data. If I tell you this again and again and again, eventually it will sink in. That's not how people work, is it? That's not how people work. You could read something 200 times, and if it bores you to death the first time and bores you to death 200 times, you're not going to remember it. We don't remember boring stuff. You ever notice that? Can you tell me about 10 boring moments that you've had in the last 10 years? Go. Do you remember them? All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Make sure that you do, of course, smash that like button and hit subscribe because you found the best damn place on the internet for learning English. My name's been ProfRich, and I'll see you on Wednesday, folks. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, there you go. You get it again. See you on Wednesday.